Up on the bench at the moment is my other Moto Guzzi, another 250, this time a 1952 Airone Sport. The Sport having, I think, something like 11 horsepower instead of 7. And they're nicknamed the Bacon Slicer, which if I can squeeze round the other side, the reason for that might become clear. And you can see the external flywheel on the engine. Anyway, this is up on the bench at the moment because I'm investigating the forks. Basically, I bought this bike and it had been UK registered, but had come out of a collection or a museum or something like that. Looks like an older restoration. Don't think it's had much running in a good few years. It does start and run easily. Sorted out some problems with the fuel system. The fuel taps didn't let any fuel through, and the carburettor needed a certain amount of work on the float bowl, and on the slide was sticking. And I have ridden it up and down the back lane, and one of the things I discovered is that the forks were sticking. Now, if you look at the headstock on here, you'll see you've got the big pivot bolt here, and you think it would have a girder fork. And that is exactly what the earlier models had, but they converted it to a telescopic fork, but it bolts to the original style headstock. So here's the fork on the bench, and yes, it is an upside down fork. They're not a modern invention, and it's quite unusual. It's all a steel fabrication. As you can see, the two sides are connected in one piece, and these arrangements down here consist of a fixed bronze guide block and an adjustable roller, and then at the top end there's a plane bush, and then there's a damping mechanism down the inside of the fork leg, and there's a rod that comes through into the top cap. Now, to investigate the damping mechanism, it probably just needs new seals. There's probably a seal swollen up or falling to bits or something in there that's causing it to stick. And I want to give it a proper clean, because you can see there's this almost lacquer-like material there. I need to take it apart, and in order to do so you need a special tool. So this is the I don't know, peg spanner, whatever you want to call it, similar to a tool for a bearing retaining nut, and this unscrews the damper tube, which also retains the spring, and this needs to be extended. So I've got a bit of black iron water pipe and sacrificed a nasty cheap old socket. So I'm going to weld these together into a tool, and then hopefully we'll be able to unscrew the damper tubes. So these are the internal components of the fork leg, and of course the lower fork leg itself. You've got a damper tube which has a seal at this end, and there's a seal embedded in the top. I think there's a washer pressed in on top of the seal to retain it. That's what it looks like. I'm going to see what information I can find. And then you've got the damper rod, which has a tapered section here, so I imagine the damping is designed to increase at both ends of the travel and is reduced in the middle, so these become additional damping to help stop topping out and bottoming out. There's a washer on the shaft, or bush on the shaft with a series of holes for oil passage. Whether that's just a support or is part of the damping oil passage is an interesting question. I'll have to study it a bit more. Right on the bottom is a valve body, so this becomes a piston. There's a fairly tight fit in the bore of the fork leg, and on the top of it is a washer which is sprung loaded, so this becomes actually quite similar to a cartridge emulator or even a very primitive shim stack. So I'd imagine they might be using leakage around the piston as a sort of low speed damping, and then the high speed damping, this plate will lift against the spring pressure and allow additional oil through. Anyway, this seal, it's a static seal. It seals the damper tube into the bottom leg. This actually just screws in the top, so there's a static seal here. This thing is pretty badly chewed up, so I'm going to try and work out the sizes and see if I can just order an ordinary square section seal. I know I can buy seal kits for these, but I believe they are quite expensive. The seal on the top, again, I want to find out whether it is a pressed in washer or whether you're meant to somehow actually hoik the seal out. It looks too tight. What I may investigate is the possibility of replacing this with a lip seal. So just whether there's a lip seal that would just fit, or indeed if the housing needs a light skim, there is a little bit of leeway there to machine it. But that might be a solution and make it easier to get seals for it. So that's where we are at the moment with the Airone forks. The actual bottoms are lying on the bike bench, and maybe next time we'll delve into the roller and guide block assembly at the bottom there.